the main course for meat.
For the episode.
Yeah, we've got 2 episodes of Moon Knight to discuss.
We have,
because we obviously hadn't restarted last week when the first episode came out. So the plan going forward when stuff like this releases, everyone, is the bulk of the episode will be talking about whatever was released on Disney Plus on the Wednesday. But you get an extra long one, so if need be, if you're watching us on YouTube, staring at our gorgeous faces, maybe pause it and go get some snacks so you can listen to our shitty opinions.
Yeah, and I think we'll try and keep on episode 1, then on to episode 2. But I feel like there's gonna definitely be points where I'm bound to forget what episode things are from.
Yeah, but fortunately, memory problems are on brand for this show, so it's fine.
Yeah, true.
So, I think what I want to discuss first, before we get into the nitty-gritty, and I don't know why, it's going to be something that I feel like it's always a good place to start with, the overall vibe of the show. No, I don't necessarily mean just like cinematography or music or all that. I mean just like the genuine feeling that it brings inside you. Every piece of media is trying to elicit a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think they have done so far with eliciting the feeling they're trying to get of like a bit of confusion, but also like investing you deeply?
I think they're nailing it. From the get-go, episode 1, I think I even messaged you and said I was getting those Fight Club sort of vibes of being a bit confused. It's trying to confuse you on which personality of the character we're seeing, but not so much that you lose track of what's going on. And I think that they're finding that balance well. And there was even things in episode 2 that they then flipped, and you're like, oh, that didn't happen how I was thinking it was happening. Here's another slight twist on things, and I think we're going to keep seeing that. But yeah, I think generally they're nailing that level of confusion that you want without losing the kind of grasp of the viewer.
Yes,
it's not so confusing that the viewer loses complete track of what's going on and can't enjoy it or follow along.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think the things they've done well compared to other Marvel Disney Plus shows, in my opinion, is the pacing seems a lot better.
Yeah, I get that.
What we've had so far with the MCU Disney Plus shows is 4 episodes of Can You Guess Who the Villain Is, which everyone who really, really cares works out after 1, maybe 2 episodes because we pool all of our collective knowledge. And then we get what while I always enjoy them, always feels quite rushed, episodes 5 and 6, where they're trying to cram all the action in.
I
and I was concerned that the structure was seeming so copy and paste, and while it was an entertaining structure, when we're getting 4 shows a year, that structure is always going to wear thin quick. So what I kind of wanted was either them to keep that pace, but give us more episodes, so the balancing felt better, or do what they have done with Moon Knight and just up the pace a little bit. They're not hiding who the bad guy is; they're just confusing you as to whether you like the bad guy or not. They're not trying to confuse you with who the bad guy is. You're like, okay, cool. Ethan Hawke's character, Arthur, I forget his last name. He's the bad guy. He's our antagonist. They're using the confusion they clearly want to elicit, and the desire to know what's going to happen next is the internal battle and the what does he actually want instead of the who is he, which I think so far is working infinitely better for me personally.
Yeah. And I think also Moon Knight especially leans really well into that, because you have the added advantage of you're also trying to figure out which version of is Mark Spector the main, in this version of Moon Knight, is Mark Spector maybe the main personality, or is this Steven? Like, you're trying to figure out who's the one mainly in control and what's been going on with his character. Something that I don't know if you know this, but it might be a reason why this show feels different to the other MCU ones. The director for Moon Knight, this is pretty much his first major thing. He's a very young director, and apparently, so he is Egyptian, and he has come over to say it's got wind that the MCU was doing Moon Knight, and apparently he wrote out the whole like play-by-play for the TV show, how he would do it, and the MCU loved it so much that they gave him the reins. So I think the fact that there's someone fresh coming in and has kind of been like, this is what I would do, and they've kind of let him do that, and it's not like the same directors or like the same people kind of hands-on as before. I think that's one reason, like the main reason why it feels so different to the other shows.
Yeah, and it's actually really nice to see or read about his story. Like I said, he doesn't have many credits at all. Nothing as big as this for sure. He flew out to LA because he was starting to get more work and a bit more well known. Like I said, he heard that they were getting ready to kind of get Moon Knight going. He wrote a 200-page proposal, gave it to Marvel. They read it, loved it, and hired him.
Yeah.
And I do agree. I think that is helping. On like the way it operates, you can still tell it's an MCU show. So he's definitely either he's a huge MCU fan and his entire style is heavily influenced by the MCU, or which is much more believable for me, every MCU project has 2 or 3 guys there who are there to help it fit in, like style wise, and they go, okay, you want to do this, it needs to fit like this. This is how we do it. And not that it matters.
I would predict that it's a bit of both, because he's a fairly young director. Like, he's probably, when he was like in school for film or whatever, was probably a fan of the Marvel things, and he's obviously a fan of Moon Knight to know a lot about him, and obviously is a comic book fan. So I wouldn't surprise me if he is already influenced by like MCU films that he's watched as he's been like going through his film career. Plus, obviously, there's definitely going to be some MCU guys with their like keeping it within brand guidelines, so to speak.
Of course. So first episode.
Yes.
So we get to see a lot of Steven. We get to get an idea of what kind of life he's living. He's living in London. He's very meek. He's very within himself. He talks to himself a lot. He's got this apartment that, while it kind of has this a feeling to it, where you're like, if you decorate that, that'd be a really cool place to live. They've also made it look so you go, oh wow, that's really drab and like, what a sad life. He's
really
working in he's working in an Egyptian museum. Or a museum. He's just working in the Egyptian part of it.
Yeah.
And then we get introduced to his boss, who just belittles him constantly. And you just feel even more sorry for this character. And you're just like, wow, this guy cannot catch a break. We get a little slither of hope when we find out that the woman that he clearly has a crush on at work, he's got a date with her. He doesn't remember this. When did he ask her on a date? How did this happen? And that's like the first kind of inkling we get as not everything is as it meets the eye. And I think it's really beautiful that it's such a subtle thing they start with.
Yeah, and is it the first opening scene they have like the whole process of him checking that he didn't leave his bed? Because he goes through like, he has tape on the door, checks that it's not broken.
Yeah, the sand, the foot chains, the Rubik's Cube, the music, everything.
So you instantly get given this sense of, okay, he is clearly like aware of something with him that is wrong.
Yeah.
And you get instantly thrown into this world of how he is managing it, and you think, oh, okay, he has control of whatever's going on. He has his system. He hasn't gone anywhere. Maybe at some point he is. And then, say, you get to the point with the date thing. It's he doesn't remember that. So then you're
yeah,
has something
maybe
happened?
he's not.
Not
maybe he's not in as much control as he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they really play up to the meekness of, oh, they go into a steak restaurant. His horrible boss comes in and goes, "The fuck is a vegan going to eat at a steak restaurant?" And then you've got the security guard who always calls him Scotty when his name is Stephen. And
I can relate
think
to
that really is what drives home this kind of Fight Club vibe of your life is not your own, because the narrator in Fight Club is the exact same. He's a really meek man who just gets pushed around.
Yeah, and there's parts that he doesn't remember how injuries and stuff he gets in that. Yeah, it's the same thing of it's very subtle things early on that they drop to start building that idea of there's more going on than you understand. Than you understand at the moment.
So then, after a shift at work, which was horrible because his boss is a bitch and no one really likes him, he's really excited because he's got a date. So he goes home and he's getting ready to go to bed. His date's tomorrow night. He's super excited, brilliant. And then he wakes up in a field in the middle of nowhere, completely confused with how he got there. I think that transition might be one of the coolest things, or one of the coolest ways they could have really just turned left on us out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was the first big sudden kind of, not necessarily a twist, but sudden adjustment in kind of what felt like the direction of things.
And I also think it was the first time we kind of got a taste that the pacing wasn't going to be as slow as well.
Yeah.
Because I think with other MCU shows, we would have got 2 full episodes of that first kind of 20 minutes of behavior.
Yeah. I think as well, because there'd been that build up to that point of kind of a very dreary, slow sort of mood to things, they really cinematically sold that switch up, because it went from he's in bed and he's got this routine and a very dreary same pace. Suddenly he's in bright sunny open field, completely different environment. Suddenly just the energy and pace changed, and I think that on top of the whole shift of things really sold that kind of, okay, this is not straightforward. This is a much faster paced show. This is going to have a lot of these moments where suddenly it switches and you have no idea what the hell's going on and what's going on. You got to figure it out along with everyone else, sort of thing.
I really enjoyed him looking up at the window that he'd clearly fallen out of and waving at the bad guy before he realised he was a bad guy.
And the bad guy not shooting straight away and being the fuck is this guy now waving at me for?
And do you know what else I kind of like about this? So, obviously, Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Moon Knight has DPD. No.
Bipolar disease.
No, it's not bipolar. Dissociative identity disorder, DID.
DID.
And with DID, as far as I'm aware, based on what I've read and having watched people discuss it, it's very common that the different personalities don't share information. So when Mark is in control, Stephen has no knowledge, and vice versa, is how someone with DID would experience it.
Right.
So I think, although it does seem a bit bizarre, Stephen not knowing what's going on or having any real knowledge of anything makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
we discussed it when the trailer came out that I thought for the first few episodes, obviously I was basing it on other Marvel projects pacing, we were going to get Stephen just cutting and waking up in random places, which we did get in that first episode.
Yeah.
And that I think it was probably about 20 minutes worth where it was doing that kind of stuff. I've seen some people say they didn't like it because they felt like they were missing stuff. But it's the first episode where they're still just trying to lay the groundwork of what this person is experiencing. Because
Yeah.
Moon Knight and Mark Spector are not the main characters of this show. Stephen Grant is.
Yes, it's. I think for people that felt like they were missing stuff, I think had they not done it that way, it would have been really hard for you to get into the mindset of seeing this from one perspective.
Yeah.
And they want you to experience it from one perspective and understand that, like you said, like, because they don't share memories, you kind of have to teach the viewer that. So doing it this way prepares the viewer for getting their head around and understanding that, okay, Mark Spector doesn't share information with Stephen Grant and vice versa. So it's like going into episode 2 and stuff, like you now have that understanding of, okay, memories aren't shared.
Exactly.
So you can not feel like the characters should know stuff, but is acting like they don't. Because you understand what's going on there. And
Do you know what else I really liked? That I've seen a couple of people discussing online, but not as many as I expected.
Cool.
Jake Lockley, or the third personality, is being teased. So
I completely forgot there was a third person.
there's been a couple of shots when they've been doing like the mirror effect, where you can see a third version of Mark, Stephen, whoever, moving differently to the other two.
Right.
And also, this is just, as far as I'm concerned, common sense. Mark married and filed for divorce because he doesn't want to endanger his wife. Stephen's too much of a pussy. Who asked out the cute girl from the museum?
Well, it's not, yeah, it wouldn't be Mark.
It wouldn't be Mark. Mark ain't got time for that shit.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't even considered, like, in episode 2 of, like, who had asked out.
I mean, in episode 1, you can believe it's Mark, but once you know Mark is married and is separating from his wife to keep her safe, there's no way he's going to ask out the girl Stephen fancies for Stephen's sake.
Yeah. Ooh.
So, who is it? It's got to be a third personality, which I would assume would be Jake.
Yeah.
But I thought that was very interesting. I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it. You never know. Maybe that segment of audio, me saying that there, is what's going to get us 100 million downloads. Who knows? But I thought that was quite interesting. Another thing that I have seen a lot more people discussing that is potentially being teased. What country did he wake up in episode 1?
I presume, wasn't it like Hungary or something?
Do you know what a lot of people think it is because of that castle?
Go on.
Latveria, the home of Doctor Doom.
Oh.
That castle looks exceedingly like Doctor Doom's castle.
Oh, does it?
And apparently there was something hidden in the ice cream van as well that said Von Doom or something.
Oh.
So whether that pays off in this show versus just little teases about the person existing are obviously two very different things.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just Latveria before Victor's taken over.
Possibly.
But that was another very cool thing.
Maybe he takes over after because of like the state that the people are in.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. The Von Doom and the who asked out the girl. I thought is the girl especially. I'm surprised no one's
I think
considering.
I guess because it's only kind of episode 2 that really makes you suddenly think about that because you get more
Yeah.
information on Mark. Also, I wonder, just in general, like how many people. Obviously, like the comic book fans know there's a third personality, but I guess it's so easy.
Yeah,
Like, I've
I
forgotten.
guess.
Like, it's easy to be at the moment be so focused on these other two that you kind of forget. Oh, there's a third one, and because they're being very subtle, easy to miss, I guess.
I'm also super intrigued by the conflict that they're showing between Contra and Mark.
Yes.
So obviously I don't claim to be an expert on Moon Knight, but I mean, Khonshu, to my understanding, Mark has basically always been very devout to. But fans have always kind of disliked Khonshu a little bit because he's a bit of an arsehole. Which we do definitely see. But Mark kind of pushing back against that is super interesting. And we discussed previously, maybe he'd been Moon Knight for a while. And we kind of also get given that impression when Stephen goes in, how long have you been doing this? And he just goes, too long.
Yeah, they definitely given the hint, or like they put it out there that like they've had this agreement, whatever they have between them, has been going on for a while now, and it seems that Mark is trying to get to the end point of whatever this agreement was that they had, but it seemingly is obviously getting stretched out.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but I feel like we got Mr. Knight in a different way than he is in the comics.
I don't know a lot about Mr. Knight. What I do know is that's not him. What I think that was is the director and them going, it's a really cool fucking costume, I want to get it in here, which is absolutely fine. But we're not ready for the full-on character yet. So, Mark, Stephen doesn't know what he's expecting. Stephen's going to get the suit on. Stephen's really ditzy. If he thinks of a suit, he thinks of a suit.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I actually don't hate it.
I know.
What I am not happy with is comic book Twitter's obsession with comparing a character to another character just because another character's more famous. So obviously Moon Knight and Batman share a lot of similarities. No one's disputing that. But for some reason they're deciding Stephen Grant in the Mr. Knight suit is now just white Deadpool. It's just no. Deadpool is the merc with a mouth. He's vulgar. He's over the top. Stephen Grant was feigning confidence to try and hype himself up into surviving this situation.
I don't get that connection.
I really enjoyed the float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. My name's Stephen with a V. Oh my god! Yes, it was silly. Yes, it was stupid. Yes, it was over the top. Guess what? Stephen Grant, in the last 24 hours of his waking life, has gone from having a date with the woman he has a crush on to finding out there is another person inside his head. There is a man with weird tattoos that move trying to kill him. He has a wife who he's getting divorced from. And all of this bullshit. This man is just trying to feign as much confidence as possible, hoping that it will actually give him the power to do something.
Yeah. I also isn't Mr. Knight like the best isn't the idea that he's the best or most in control version?
I think the idea is he's the most in control version.
So,
but again, I don't know that for certain.
I get my takeaway from like them showing it now was kind of a tease towards that, because like when he did build up a lot of confidence and hit the Jackal and like gave it a great fucking right hook and showed that, like, oh, look, you have the power. He just doesn't understand it properly yet. And I feel like it was their way of showing this is what Moon Knight
we want to do.
like. This is him like unknowingly building that connection of being in control properly, but like
exactly.
hasn't got full control. So then obviously when he gives it up, it goes back to Mark Spector and his Moon Knight suit.
Exactly.
But no, I thought they did a good job of how they made use of that suit.
Do you know what else really surprised me?
Go on.
The shot from the promo for the Disney arc. They actually used it in the show.
They used two of the shots from the
the
trailer.
like
Was in the episode 2.
To fill out the trailer.
It was like episode 2. I was like, oh, they used the shot from the Disney Plus logo, and then it finishes and he does the whole like how he grabs his crescent moon like battle thing. I was like, oh, that's also from the trailer.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool. I love the direction it's going. I think Ethan Hawke is doing fantastically as the antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
I think Oscar Isaac is giving two very different and equally amazing performances as Stephen and Mark.
And that like crossover, like the scene when he tries to give him the scarab and he's fighting himself, like to actually act those scenes is very impressive. To be fighting yourself essentially.
Yeah.
Also, in episode 2 when like he watches back the security footage and you suddenly realize that those things he's seeing are invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately gave me Fight Club vibes of when he realizes that he's been fighting himself. And in Fight Club, you see the real perspective of him just throwing punches at himself and fighting nobody in the street or whatever it is. It immediately gave me the same vibes as that of when you start seeing that, oh, he's fighting something that other people don't see.
So obviously at the end of episode 2, we're now in Egypt.
Yes.
Which, I mean, makes sense. We're looking for an Egyptian god's tomb. Where else would it be? So I think now is where we go more into the Indiana Jones territory we've heard about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Stephen is going to play more of a role of the conscience.
Yeah, I think Mark's going to have a stronger control again.
Mark is going to, I think, be in control a lot more going forward. And what we're going to have is Mark following Conju's instructions, and then Stephen trying to get him to do the right thing, both for what needs to be done for Conju, but also to hurt as few people as possible. I think the best is yet to come with this series.
Yeah.
And I really wish people would just enjoy it. And I really want the internet to just almost go back to the early days of the MCU and just enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun. Don't get me wrong. I know we're sitting here dissecting it for an hour or whatever, but that's because it's fun.
Yeah, and we're not dissecting it to rip it apart. That it's not like the comics, or it's not following this specific detail. We're talking about the things that we're loving.
And how shit would it be for comic book fans if it was just ripped from the comic book pages? You go, oh no,
they just be complaining that this is just direct copy of everything we've read.
When I watch these kind of films and shows, what I want to be able to do is look at it and go, I could see that being on a comic book page in the style, but at the same time go, but I have no idea where this story is going. That's what I want. Marvel's consistently doing it. James Gunn consistently doing it.
Yeah,
I'm here to just enjoy this stuff because these characters are so rich.
For me, it's like as long as it feels true enough to that character. Like, they can make slight changes here and there, but as long as like they don't stray away from the character's kind of core values, and it's like I watch this and I'm like, that is Moon Knight. Like, okay, like if I wouldn't, as long as that's the case, I'll enjoy them. Like, I have no problem with them tweaking things. It's like,
At the end of the day,
Cool.
if they stuck with how characters were in the comics, Iron Man would be the most hated character in the MCU because comic book Iron Man's an arsehole,
mhm.
an unbearable arsehole. The Guardians of the Galaxy would have been dull as fuck.
Mm.
The Inhumans would have been, I mean, they wouldn't have been much different, to be honest. Like they're
Yeah.
not trying to say that this is the 616 universe and this is all. These are
The MCU.
versions of the characters in the multiverse. This is
Mhm.
one of the Earth universes in the multiverse, and these are the way the characters are on this universe. Enjoy them. I agree with you that there's certain things about character you can't change. So, with that in mind, I would like them to almost confirm verbally or in a way that Mark is Jewish in this, because that is a big part of Moon Knight. He is Jewish. It's a big part of his character in the comics. So they can't just brush that away and go, oh, but this is a different version. Stuff like that you can't be messing with.
Yeah.
But other than that, as long as you're almost not wiping away representation, which is a big part of why comics are so beloved anyway, because everyone has a hero who could be them, do what you want.
I think in the point of Mark being Jewish, I wouldn't surprise me if now that he's in Egypt and he's the main, going to be in control the most, we'll probably see that brought to light and shown in this next episode, I would imagine. But yeah, like, that's the thing, right? As long as they stick with their core character values, I don't see why people then, like, the people can be too critical at times.
Exactly. It's art.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Just enjoy what we're getting, because we could very easily have never got any of this, and comic book fans would just be reading their comics, and we would never have got any of the MCU. Because like, if they'd done Iron Man exactly like the comics, that probably would have bombed.
Yeah, 100%.
And then we would never have had the MCU.
Exactly.
So
Little tweaks are fine.